consent calendar, item 7, all items are considered routine or implement an earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested by a council member, citizen, or staff. Any action on the consent calendar?
Through the chair, move to pull item G.
Item G. Anything else?
Move to approve the rest.
Second.
Motion second on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Item G is approve out-of-state travel for 2 central garage mechanics for training on servicing Vactor vehicles in Streeter, Illinois in September 2013 and spring of 2014.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do realize that this was from purchases that were made for 2 newer Vactors that we currently have. This was part of the purchase was the training. What my inquiry is the cost factor. So, for example, my assumption was that this now would be done in-house and we wouldn't need to send it to Oakland or South City or Sacramento in order to have some type of maintenance or upkeep. The information I received back tells me, and it's noted that this is not necessarily, there is a note that there will be some stuff that's done in-house, but it will not preclude us from going outside in order to having outsourcing of that type of activity. So what I was trying to find out is what the overall cost is. For example, if we keep 100% of it after the training, we might have to get certain tools, parts. There's the labor factor that is involved for our staff doing that, the 2 mechanics. And then what do we spend on an annual basis when we have it going out currently? I understand there's a tow. I understand there's staff. I understand we have it down as far as service. But I'm trying to understand in the bigger picture is where's the cost, where's the savings, and where's the value?
Councilmember Medina previously requested information regarding the cost, and I believe that the number that was provided was $11,000 as the amount that the city has spent over the past year for maintenance of the Vactor equipment. That number does not include full calculation of the value of downtime for staff or related activities that are not paid cash out of pocket. So we have not had an opportunity to calculate the all-in cost and to give you a complete answer, but that gives you a little bit of perspective. Talking with the director earlier today, there are a couple of different ways to evaluate the cost effectiveness of the proposal that is in front of you tonight, and that is to expend approximately $4,000 for lodging and travel that would be required to allow our 2 mechanics to take advantage of training that is offered as part of the purchase of the Vactor equipment. Using that $4,000 as the city's cost for the taking advantage of that training, we would need to look at the opportunity both to provide better troubleshooting and to minimize our exposure of necessary for costs associated with necessary maintenance and repair of the equipment by being able to better evaluate what might be needing to be adjusted with the equipment, to be able to perform going forward basic maintenance tasks, and importantly, to be able to extend the useful life of the equipment long into the future. The equipment itself has an approximate 10-year lifespan, but we anticipate being able to, through better troubleshooting and better maintenance, to be able to both extend the useful life of the equipment, avoid downtime, and provide, where we can, in-house services to perform basic maintenance tasks. The council member is correct that it will not eliminate the need, potentially, for the equipment to be serviced out of house, but it is an important initiative for the city's ability to properly operate, maintain, and as I indicated, avoid long-term exposure to cost.
Through the chair, out of the 11,000 plus, then how much of that would still need to go outside the department in order to have maintenance and or repair or service?
Based on our best estimate, you could assume that improving the diagnostical skill of our mechanics, they will be able to eliminate at least one trip to a outside shop. The estimated cost for one trip to a outside shop would be around roughly $5,000. The average cost of the service of $3,000 plus the $2,000 for step time for the 2-day lost taking the equipment there and back. If they will be able to eliminate one trip, that would already pay more back to the city than how much would our cost for the training.
So the average is $5,000 per trip, and if we spent over $11,000, let's just say that could be 2 trips maybe.
No, how the 12,000 was calculated only just the outside service, how much was paid to that shop. That was based on 4 service last year. That if you are dividing 12,000 with 4, then would be 3,000 plus one service cost paid to that outside shop, plus the 2,000 step time. That would be in average $5,000 cost for a trip, not counting the downtime.
Does this require us to get additional tools and parts and maintain them within the shop?
Not at this time, no.
Will it?
I am not aware, and none of us are aware at this time that would require any additional tools for this level of additional diagnostics.
Okay, I appreciate the comments.
Okay.
Through the chair,
Michael?
I have some questions as well. So it looks like we're making some basic assumptions in terms of what type of service is being done, regular maintenance versus repairs for something that was broken, and what the mechanics will be able to repair in-house versus what absolutely needs to be sent to an outside expert. And so I'm wondering how confident we are in those numbers.
This is an estimate, like any estimate is based on our best judgment and knowledge. You are making certain assumption, but the history is a very good indicator, and the 12,000 was calculated on last year information, financial information, and also the step time needed for one trip was based on actual time spent. That the $5,000, I feel very comfortable now that the assumption is that they will be able to eliminate at least one trip. That is the assumption, but our assumption is that they will be able to eliminate more than one. But our comments and responses were very conservative, assuming the worst case and not necessarily the best case. Certainly our goal would be to even further reduce the number of trips, even if those trips, how the city manager said, will always be necessary. Our mechanical shop never will be equipped or will have the capability to perform major repairs for those very complicated and complex equipment.
And as you mentioned to me earlier, the training itself is actually being provided without cost to the city by the manufacturer, and it's just the travel and expense that we're discussing here.
It is correct. That's what's included in the overall cost of the equipment itself.
Mm-hmm. And one other question, in terms of the utilization of the mechanics currently, so if we're going to take some new routine maintenance or preventive maintenance tasks related to the Vector and put those on those mechanics, are they going to now be overutilized? Do they have the capacity now to take on the additional work in addition to what we currently have them doing?
Their capacity is limited. The city has 2 mechanics, and whenever the capacity they need additional support, or they cannot manage the volume of work depending based on the picking up the workload, then they will need to rely on outside support.
Okay, so we may be right back where we started, but at least it's an attempt to bring some of that in-house.
It is correct.
Okay. So another idea I threw out earlier when I was talking with the director was that perhaps we look at training the operators as mechanics so that they can maintain their own equipment rather than relying on a separate job function that's a mechanic to do that. We had a little bit of a discussion there in terms of what the right skill set is for that. But it's still an idea I'd like to consider where we perhaps put more of that responsibility on the operators, even if it's not sending them to this particular training. And also considering not just for this opportunity, but for any other training opportunity where we choose people that might be better able to bring the knowledge back and then transfer that knowledge to their coworkers, so that we have sort of a train the trainer opportunity, and then sort of expand that training not just to the person that we're sending, but to the rest of the group. From what I understand, we're sending one person. We have one training session identified where one person will attend, and then the other person is to be determined, because the next session hasn't been defined yet. So
It is correct. The city has 2 mechanics. One, the first mechanic will go to the next training session, and the second mechanic will go in the spring for the second session. And your comments will be taken under advisement. Certainly, even in this case, the department will make sure that the knowledge what they gain will be transferable, and they will share with the operator as much as they can. More importantly, for the preventive maintenance, which is very critical for the operators to understand.
okay, very good. And to share with my colleagues as well, something we discussed is that going forward, there are going to be some opportunities to look at sharing of resources across the cities, and it's something that the department is constantly looking for, and there will be some opportunities there to make sure that we're taking advantage of expertise in our neighboring cities. Thank you.
Through the chair, just following up, how do we look back and determine whether this was a success, whether or not this was a good investment of money, whether we're finding ourselves in a, like you said, the $5,000. So do we, from a year from now, look back at this and say, money well spent? I know there's a third factor that may or may not come up in the CIP. Does that mean additional for that? It's obviously because we bought these 2 newer Vectors that obviously we now need the assistance, because obviously we need to train on the new machinery. I know the police cars, I believe, used to be done out of the shop when they came in new and they were geared up and all the apparatuses were put inside. If my understanding is correct, those are no longer done here, or are they still done here in the shop?
If I remember right, those services are provided by outside shops, and they are taken for service to outside
And I'm going back in
facilities.
history. It might have been because it was police vehicles were a simpler thing back then. It was not all the stuff that they have in today, but in the same time, the Vector is the same thing. Technology advances, the particulars of it does. So I'm trying to understand why in one facet we have it done outside, and here we're going to do more inside. I just am concerned, as Councilmember Salazar said, as far as the time. There's X number of hours in a day, and now there's additional stuff they're going to do. And the comment you made was if there was not going to be, if the workload became too much within that division, that we'd have to go outside again.
How, responding to your question, how I would see the success can be measured 2 years from now with the downtime of those 2 equipment what the city owns now, and also with the cost of major repairs, which will have to be performed by outside specialized shops.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on item G or action?
Move to approve item G.
Second.
Motion and a second on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item G passes.